It is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. Welcome back to the Commodities Institute podcast. I'm Emily Costa. Today we are looking at a global market that is feeling the secondary and tertiary shocks of a prolonged conflict in the Middle East. From the manufacturing hubs of Asia to the grain fields of South America, the traditional flow of goods is being rerouted, restricted, or in some cases halted entirely. We begin today with agriculture, where a massive shift in long-term demand and supply is becoming clearer. China, the world's largest buyer of several key crops, is signalling a decade of deceleration. A new report from the Agriculture Ministry suggests that in 2026, we will see a notable contraction in imports. Specifically, soybean imports are expected to fall by 6.1%, while pork, beef and dairy imports are also projected to decline by anywhere from 4 to 8%. If we look further out, the decade-long forecast is even more striking. By 2035, China expects soybean imports to drop to 82.55 million tons, which is a massive 26.2% decline from the record high of over 111 million tons set just last year. This isn't just about shifting tastes, it's about a concerted effort toward domestic self-sufficiency. China is forecasting its own grain output to reach 753 million tons by 2035, an increase of 5% from previous records. While China prepares for a future of less reliance on the global market, Argentina is proving to be a powerhouse in the current season. A new report from the United States Department of Agriculture, attaché in Buenos Aires, has raised eyebrows across the trading floor. They are forecasting a corn harvest of 61 million metric tons for the 2025-2026 season. This is significantly higher than the official department estimate of 52 million tons. Why the discrepancy? It seems the planted area is much larger than initial projections suggested. This could mean Argentine corn exports reaching 41 million tons, providing a much-needed buffer for global supply even as markets remain on edge. Turning our attention to the metals sector, the industrial impact of the conflict in the Middle East is now being quantified in hard numbers. The International Aluminium Institute reported today that primary aluminum production in the Gulf region fell by 6% in March. This is a direct result of the war, as the region's two largest smelters have come under attack. And the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has strangled both the arrival of raw materials and the shipment of finished metal. Daily production in the Gulf, which usually accounts for 9% of global capacity, dropped to just under 16,000 metric tons. The situation at Emirates Global Aluminium is particularly concerning, with reports suggesting it could take up to a full year to resume full production at their Al Tawila smelter. This is creating a knock-on effect as far away as Australia, where alumina suppliers are finding their usual customers in the Gulf unable to receive shipments. In the midst of this, mining giant Rio Tinto is reporting a resilient first quarter, though they are sounding the alarm for the second half of the year. While their iron ore sales from the Pilbara operations were up 2.4%, they are flagging visibility issues. The biggest risk they see isn't necessarily a lack of ore, but a lack of fuel. Shortages of jet fuel and diesel are the primary threats to their operations right now. These shortages don't just make it more expensive to run heavy machinery, they limit the ability to move personnel and services to remote mine sites. This brings us directly to the energy markets and the precarious situation in the Strait of Hormuz. Shipping in the Strait has reached a near standstill once again after a weekend of warning shots and vessel seizures. On Monday, only one ship exited the Gulf, while two entered over a 12-hour window. To put that in perspective, the usual traffic is about 130 vessels per day. The ceasefire that many hoped for seems to be in jeopardy as Iran vows retaliation for the United States military seizing one of its cargo ships. This uncertainty is reflected in the price of doing business. War risk insurance rates have climbed back up to 3% of a ship's value, up from 2% just last week. We are also seeing a fascinating dynamic in China's refined fuel markets. Despite rumours of a total ban, data shows Beijing is actually curtailing exports rather than stopping them entirely. April shipments have been cut deeper than March, with diesel and gasoline exports to countries like Vietnam and Australia falling to just 1/6 of their year-earlier levels. However, flows to Hong Kong remain intact. Why? Because the margins are simply too good to pass up. Processing margins for Asian diesel and jet fuel are currently sitting at 2 to 3 times their pre-conflict levels. Beijing is being very deliberate here. They are choosing energy security for their neighbours and high profits in Hong Kong over broad global supply. In the power sector, nations are scrambling to insulate themselves from these fossil fuel price shocks. Singapore, which relies on gas for 95% of its electricity, has been forced into the spot market. Since the war began in late February, Singapore Gasco has secured 2 spot cargoes from Australia and 1 from Mozambique to offset the loss of Qatari gas that usually flows through the blocked Strait of Hormuz. These disruptions have sent Asian liquefied natural gas prices up 54% since the end of February, currently trading at around $16.05 per million British thermal units. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, the government is taking drastic steps to decouple electricity costs from volatile gas prices. They are moving to force older renewable energy generators onto fixed contracts. The goal is to ensure that consumers aren't paying gas prices for wind and solar power. They are also increasing the electricity generator levy from 45 to 55% to claw back some of the windfall payments these low-carbon generators have been receiving due to the high cost of gas. It's a major structural shift aimed at protecting industrial competitiveness as domestic energy prices are poised to soar again this July. Finally, we look at the dry freight and grain markets in Eastern Europe and South Asia. Russian wheat export prices remained steady at $237 per metric ton last week. Despite some weather concerns, shipments have picked up slightly. In India, the government has made the surprising move of doubling its wheat export quota to 5 million tons. However, local traders are sceptical. Many are struggling to meet the original quota, and with global logistics in such a state of disarray, there are doubts that this additional volume will even find its way to international markets this season. It's a complex, interconnected web of disruptions. As we move into the second half of the year, the ability of these supply chains to adapt to a new normal of restricted shipping and volatile energy costs will be the defining story for the commodities world. If you found this episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Find us online at commoditiesinstitute.com.